got you. Take your hands off. Hello, I'm Scott Rogers. I'm here to introduce you to the art of Kyusho-jitsu pressure point fighting. First, we're going to talk about what a pressure point is. Pressure point is a place where a nerve comes to an end, where a nerve crisscrosses, and where a nerve branches off and forms the letter Y. Pressure points are holes or crevices in the body that allow one to enter pain directly into the nervous system. If we take, for example, the radial nerve, which travels up the index finger, across the arm, ends in the neck. The nerve is pretty long, but there's only several spots where one actually has openings to attack the nerve. When one attacks a pressure point, pain is transmitted directly to the nerve and travels in a much quicker route than if you struck it somewhere else. So basically, if I struck you on the arm, anywhere on the radial nerve, a signal would be sent, but usually it only goes about halfway up. When you strike it on a pressure point, the signal goes directly to the spinal cord, and then it gets picked up by the brain there. What we do with these signals is we cause bodies to react to what we're doing. We may strike a point to cause a person's knee to bend or to cause them to turn in a specific direction. We also use the points in a cumulative manner. If you strike one point, you will get a good effect, but if you strike one point, say on the arm, and then go for a second point, the effect is doubled. In this manner, a smaller person can defend themselves against a larger individual using pressure points, where without the knowledge of pressure points, it would require much more power and precision. Okay, the points we're going to be covering on this first tape are going to be the points of the arm and the points of the legs. The arm points are considered the most important points in Kyusho-jitsu for several reasons. The first one, in any type of attacking situation, whether it's a punch, a grab, a tackle, the first thing coming at you is the arms. So generally it makes sense to strike the closest thing to you. So while a person may be a few feet away from you, when they reach out, their arms are much closer. Another reason is we use the arms as what we call setup points. By striking an arm point, we can make a more sensitive neck or jaw point weaker, allowing us to knock the individual out or knock him to the ground. The third reason we use the arm points is legally, if somebody grabs you or tries to push you and you hit him as hard as you can and knock him out, that might be an overuse of force. Using the arm points, it allows us to release from a hold or make an individual stop their behavior while still maintaining control and setting them up for future strikes. There are two words that are very important in pressure point fighting. Those two words are angle and direction. What that means is that just because you strike a pressure point does not mean you'll get the maximum effect. For maximum effect, it has to be struck in the proper manner, the proper direction. 3 ways pressure points are activated: by touching, striking, or rubbing. If you take a point on the wrist, which is called a rub point, which means it has to be stimulated in a rubbing manner, and you strike it, you will not get an effect. Conversely, if you take a point in the center, which is a hit point, and you rub it, you will not get an effect. So the 2 things to always be conscious of is, how am I striking these points, and what direction am I striking them in? Some points need to be struck from back to front, some up to down, some side to side. No pressure points in the human body are struck straight on. So if you were to throw a straight punch out, no matter how hard your punch was, you will not activate any pressure point to the maximum degree. Most of them go down, slightly up. A lot come back to front. That's why in traditional karate there are a lot of moves coming back towards yourself. That's to set up the points going in this direction, following up in the opposite direction. So the first thing we're going to cover is going to be the rub point on the wrist, the touch point on the bottom of the wrist, and the hit point. This way you can see an example of all 3. Okay. The pressure points we're going to be using are the same pressure points that acupuncturists use to soothe or heal. Basically, they put a needle in these different points, and they make you feel better or cure ailments. We strike them in the opposite direction and try to cause opposite effects, either weakness in the arm or set up for further blows. When acupuncture was first developed, they did not know anything of the nervous system, so they sort of invented it on their own. And what they did was, instead of calling this the radial nerve, they called this the lung meridian. All of the meridians in the body are on different nerves. The median nerve is the pericardium meridian. The ulnar nerve is the heart meridian, so on and so forth. So the points have names such as lung 8 and heart 5. That was basically a primitive way of describing the different points on the different nerves. What they've also done is there are different methods of connecting the two together. One of the most popular is called the cycle of destruction, which basically says that if I strike a fire point, The next point in the cycle is metal because fire melts metal. Now, there are about 5 different theories to connect the points, and when you get finished with all of them, you realize that if you strike one point, the next one becomes weaker regardless of what theory you're using. So originally the points were designed to kill individuals and cause organs to stop, and if you were going after a specific organ, you'd want to be on specific meridians. To cause weakness in the arm, to cause a person to fall down or to be unconscious, it's not necessary to take it to that level. So all you really need to know is that if you strike one point in one spot, somewhere else a pressure point is weak. You don't have to know why it's happening. You just have to know to always be hitting points and hit points in connection with each other. Also, as a general rule, we're going to work our way up the body. So we're going to travel from the arm to the neck or the head, or to the legs, to the body or to the head. Main reason for that is the closer you get to the neck and the head region, the quicker the nerve impulse is transmitted. So while it's possible to actually knock an individual out on the arm alone, it's a lot easier on the neck. So it makes a lot more sense to set him up on the arm and make him weaker for the next shot than to hit the neck and try to hit the arm, which is further away. What I'm going to be introducing now is John. John is a student and a friend of mine. We're going to be showing the first 3 points, the rub, the press, and the hit. Now, we're going to be showing them off of a wrist grab. These can be used in a lot of different ways. This can be used in ground fighting, which we'll explore later. This can be used in motion, depending on the technique. Right now, we're going to do it off of a grab so that we can see exactly where the points are, exactly how it affects him. First point we're going to be using is called lung 8. Basically, where a nurse would take your pulse, 1/2 inch above the wrist joint, there's a hollow depression there. That depression, if he grabs nice and tight and I hit it, he feels it, but nothing happens. Now, if I was a lot stronger than him and I hit it really hard, he may let go, he may not let go. But a smaller individual would have no chance. By rubbing this point in an up to down motion, it causes him to let go, causes his hand to open, and it also causes his body to arch forward. That's very important because as he comes forward, he's set up for a follow-up immediately. Also, something to watch is this arm. There's something in medical terms called cross-extensor reflex action. What that means is when I strike this arm, that arm runs away. So on paper or on a magazine article, if you see somebody standing like this, the first thing somebody says is, he could hit me with that arm. But when you strike one of the points, that arm immediately starts to fly backwards. It's a protection mechanism because your body has 2 arms. It doesn't want both of them to be injured at the same time. Just like if I poke him in this eye, that eye is going to close to protect it. All right, so we take advantage of that. So the first one is called lung 8. It's in the depression. It needs to be rubbed. But if you rub on the surface, nothing happens. You also need to project where you want his arm to go. I want to rub his arm, but I want it going down there, if possible even towards my left leg. So as I rub, my arm travels down this way. Eye contact is very important. Generally, your arm tends to go where you look. That's why in boxing or even in martial arts, they tell you when you're hitting a target or a bag, not to look at the surface, but to look through it, because your arm will go there. Same thing on this point. If you're looking exactly where you're going, you're going to end up on the surface, and he's going to feel it a little bit. You want to make sure that his arm starts here, just open for a second, but it ends up all the way down there. So your focus point, instead of being here, is actually down here, and you bring him down this way. Now, the further up the arm we go, which we'll see later on, the more dramatic the body reaction is. If he was to grab a little higher and we hit him on one of these, his entire body moves. This particular move would generally be used in a less threatening situation. If he, say, had a knife in the other hand, I would not be rubbing this point. This is more somebody just grabbed you and you get out. This is excellent for smaller people, for children. Everybody's sensitive. And what you're also going to find is the larger the person and the stronger their grip, the better this works. So if you have a very strong man and an average-sized woman, the woman will have no problem doing it against the man. The man might not even be able to make it work on the woman. But the man can just go like this and make the woman let go because of the strength difference. So when you're working with somebody, make sure you're working with somebody strong. Make sure they grab you. If John grabs me and he's very loose, he doesn't feel anything. You know, I'm moving him, but he's not feeling it. But the tighter he grabs, tight, he's actually in pain from that. What happens is the more tense he gets, the nerve runs all the way up the arm to the neck. It actually tightens. The tighter the nerve is, the quicker the impulse goes, the more pain there's going to be. So the first one is the rub point. Now this can be rubbed with the knuckles. If he was to grab with the other side, we could also use the ulnar bone on the bottom to rub to make him let go. We can also, if he was grabbing higher, use finger pressure. And we would have to, instead of rubbing, we're pulling in this direction, causing a rubbing motion, which would actually bring him into us. So rather than trying to use grip and pull him in, we just rub in this point, and it brings him right down, leaving this arm free to strike him or to block anything that might be coming our way. Second point we're going to use is exactly opposite to the lung point. It's called heart 6. It's a ½ inch above the wrist joint, and this is a press point. Press point means it has to be pressed or squeezed. The way we use this one, the way we demonstrate it is if he makes a nice tight fist and I try to bend it, I can't. But by taking my thumb knuckle and pressing it into the point, the wrist bends and sets him up for a wrist lock. Now, nobody's going to give you that fist and allow you to do this technique. The way we use this would be as he's grabbing, maybe we want to peel his arm off and bring him into an arm bar. If he was grabbing nice and tight and I grabbed his forearm and pulled, I might not be able to get him to move. Because while his wrist remains straight, he has maximum power. If anybody tries this, if you make a tight fist and bend it, as it bends, the hand tends to open. So by bending the wrist, the hand opens, he loses all power. So what I'm going to do is with my middle finger, with this part, the pad, almost like an Indian sunburn, I'm going to grab and I'm going to rub that point, pressing it against the bone. So now as I dig in here, it brings him to this position, which was a lot easier than before with a lot less effort. Now, in real situation, we wouldn't stand there and just use one arm. We would let both arms do the work. This would dig in, this would help, and we would bring him right down, allowing us to follow up on other points, or if we did it severely enough, we can bring him straight down to the ground. So we have our rub point, and we have our press point. The third point we're going to cover is the hit point. Hit point is called lung 6. It's directly in the middle between the wrist and the elbow, where this muscle tries to drop down and on the inside of the bone. This point, if you rub it, he feels it a little bit because I'm digging into his bone, but if you hit it with your forearm, the arm just flies away. Now, his arm will go where I put it. If I go this way, he's going to go that way. But we always want him coming towards us. This way we can strike. Right now, I can't really reach him. He can't reach me with power. As I hit him this way, he's right here for the follow-up shots. So in a situation like this, I would have my choice of rubbing, pressing, and hitting. And that choice would be based on what martial art I do. If I did a grappling art or a jiu-jitsu art, I'd want to come for this one to get him into an arm bar. If I was doing more like karate or a striking art, I'd want to come in here to hit him. And if I just wanted to release from the hold, I would just come here, possibly to step away and wait to see what he does next. Now, we spoke earlier about how the points weaken him. When I do this to him this way, he's weak for about a second. When I hit him, it's still going to amplify the effect. But if I come in and I hit the arm and it kind of goes to sleep like it does right now, I actually have up to 20 minutes to follow up with my next shot. So basically, as long as he's feeling that pain in his arm, that nerve is transmitting up. And as long as it's transmitting up from the arm, when you catch it up and meet it towards the top, you're going to have the effect amplified. So when you practice, we just use just enough to make him let go. If you do more than that, nobody's going to want to practice with you and you won't get the work in. So what you do is you do as little as possible just to make him let go. Now you're going to come across people that you're going to hit them and they're going to say it doesn't hurt. But while they're saying it doesn't hurt, their hand's still going to open. The purpose of these strikes is to make them release, bring their body forward, set up the nerve. Whether they feel pain or not is completely irrelevant. Any trained fighter, anybody that's a fan of boxing or full contact, I've seen many fights where a fighter gets his nose broken or breaks his hand and continues to fight because he goes through the pain. So if John grabbed me and I broke his nose right now where he's nice and calm, it would hurt him a lot and would affect him. If he was trying to kill me or mug me, I would hit him, and if he could take the pain, he'd still come forward. The reason being is I'm giving him pain, but I'm not neurologically causing him to do anything. By striking one of these points, neurologically, this hand has to open. Most people will feel a lot of pain, but even the ones that don't will still have the same effect. Okay, to sum up the three first points that we've done. First one is lung 8, 1/2 inch above the wrist crease, and it's rubbed from top to bottom, so we're rubbing towards the hand. Second point is called heart 6. It's 1/2 inch above the wrist joint, but it's on the bottom of the arm. And that one is pressed either with finger pressure or with knuckle pressure, causing the wrist to buckle. And the third point is halfway between the elbow and the wrist on the inside of the bone. That's called lung 6. This one is struck. Now, in the way that we struck it before, we used our forearm. The reason for that is our forearm is meaty and muscular. So when I strike his forearm, it's actually a cushion. In reality, we'd want to come in and strike with a knuckle, which would actually paralyze the arm. In practice, you have to be careful because this muscle comes to an end here, and if you strike at the insertion point, you could actually rip the muscle. So we don't really want to strike it with the knuckle in practice. If you can make him let go with the back of the arm, if you put a knuckle in there, you can be pretty sure that you're going to do double the damage. So right now we're just showing a couple of ways to strike, but you could come in with the knuckle. If he grabbed opposite, we could even come in with our fist. So those of you that do karate, basic low block, releasing the arm to get out. We covered the first 3 points of the arm. We covered the rub, we covered the pressing point, and we covered the hitting point. The next 2 points we're going to cover are the most useful on the arms for several reasons. One, they can be pressed and struck. And number 2, depending on his arm position, they can always be accessed. For example, if he grabs low, I can use the low point. But if he grabs very high, it's a little awkward to use this point. Same thing with the center point. If he grabs here or grabs my elbow or grabs low, we can use the center point. But if he grabs very high, it's too awkward to get to. The next 2 points, whether he grabs high or whether he grabs low, they can be struck. I like to call these the anti-grappling points because no matter how somebody grabs you, if you know these 2 points, you will get out every single time. First point we're going to cover now is called lung 5. Lung 5 is on the inside of the radial bone, at the crease of the elbow, a little bit below. This can be pressed to bring him down, or it can be struck to do the same thing. Generally, we use thumb pressure to demonstrate where the points are and so you could learn where they are. Real situation, you're not necessarily going to have time to squeeze. And some people have very tight muscles. They can resist the squeezing. They cannot resist the striking. Now, we're going to take this from an upper grab just to show some variety. As we strike into this point, what we're going to be watching is this leg. As this comes down, the weight is going to come on this leg. Now, that's significant for 2 reasons. If the weight is on this leg, he can't kick me with that leg. If his weight is leaning forward like this, he can't kick me with the other leg. With his body turned this way, he can't punch me with that hand. His legs also become weak for a follow-up shot. His head is exposed and unprotected. So we have a situation where he's in front of us, and now he's sideways, and we're actually almost behind him. So from here, we could choose to follow up with the next sensitive point in the line, or lock him in place, or bring him down to the ground. An example of bringing him to the ground would be instead of rolling him into our stomach, we're going to go down with this one, we're going to sidestep. So as we hit, we bring him down, allowing us to pin him, control him on other points. Okay? Now, the points on the top of the arm, meaning this rub one, this hit one, and the one we're covering right now, all need to be struck towards you, not towards your opponent. So we're not going to hit his arm this way. You'll get some effect, but if it's struck in this direction, this is what brings him in the position we want. Now, we could use either arm to do it. We could use the right coming down, or we could use the left coming down. Generally, the way he grabs, if his arm is a little bit bent, it may be a little awkward to get this arm in there, so we use the right. Now, when we're using this point can be used to bring him in towards us, or in a multiple opponent situation, if we had an opponent like the Bob dummy behind us, we can put him between yourself and the next individual. So we use this inside point and the outside point, which we're going to cover next, to control his direction. Right here, I have an opportunity to use my right hand or my left hand. If I come to this point and use the right hand, I can bring him to me just to strike him. Or like I said, if there's more than one person, I could control his direction, maybe to put him between me and the next person and worry about somebody else. If there was a person on this side, the next point we're going to cover, we're going to let go for a second. When he makes a fist at the top of this bulge, we have 2 points here called large intestine 10 and 11. When it's squeezed, it causes pain. It causes the knee to buckle the same way. It causes the hand to open. Now, the advantage of this point is this point puts us behind him. This point needs to be struck in towards the bone, close to the joint, and it turns him for us this way. So now, if we had an opponent this way, we would strike it and bring him that way. So both points serve similar functions. It's just a matter of which direction we're going to use and which hand we use. Generally, this point will be struck with the right hand to set him up with a technique such as a high block. And this point will be struck with the left to set up the back of his body going this way. Okay, the next point we're going to be using, we're going to be working up the arm as we've been going. So now we're going to pass the elbow joint. We're going to be using a point that's called heart 2. If he makes a muscle between the bicep and the tricep muscle, about 1.5 inches up, there's a little hole there. This needs to be pressed in and down simultaneously. So what we generally use is we push the thumb in, and then with the pad of the thumb, we press down, giving us this control over him. We use this to control his shoulder. So if he's grabbed, usually we do this off a double grab, but so that we can see the point, we're just going to release this one for now. We would reach under the elbow would lay in the palm, the thumb would go in, and we would pull him into us this way. So we're controlling the shoulder joint. If you continued lifting, you actually have a key lock or a shoulder lock on him. This point can also be struck with the knuckles this way or coming in this way, and it has the effect of numbing the arm the entire length from that point down. This point is called heart 3. So the thumb goes in, we squeeze. Now when we squeeze a point, you can see his body tensed up. That's his reaction. What he does next is up to me. If I move him this way, he goes this way. If I pull him in, he goes this way. If I bring him down, he comes down. So when you strike a point, the point injects the pain and the control, but your directioning, your control of your arm depends on where he's going to go. A point that we use in conjunction with this, we're going to show it on the other arm, is called large intestine 12. That point lies between his bicep and his forearm. You're going to find a little hollow pocket here. Again, it can be pressed with the thumb, or it can be grabbed with the fingers to pull. If you had a large hand, you can actually put the fingers here and the thumb in on this one, allowing you to get both points, causing more pain and more control. Because remember, more than one point causes more pain. So if possible, we always try to strike at least 2 or more. So when he grabs, we follow the same thing with the elbow. The elbow's in the center of the palm, and we let the fingers loop over. As the fingers loop over, when we pull, the fingertips dig into this point, bending his arm and pulling him into us. Now, if he grabs us with one arm, we always have to be aware of the fact that he can punch you with this arm. The danger is not here, the danger is here. So our eyes are focused on this, and whatever we do, we have to do it quick to prevent him from striking. When he grabs us with 2 arms, he cannot punch us any longer, and we don't need to move as fast. And rather than taking one arm and trying to overcome 2 arms, we can actually sneak under his line of sight and control this way. So as a general rule, if there are 2 arms on you, it's okay to use a grappling type motion with the points. If there's one arm on you, we want to strike it because it's quicker and we're defending against this arm at the same time. The 2 points we're going to cover are going to be on the back of his arm. The way we're going to get to that is we're going to turn his arm over. Everything we do involves pressure points, so we're going to actually use a point to allow us to bend his wrist and grab him back. The point we'll be using is the heart point that we did originally. We're going to let our knuckles dig into it, which bends his wrist, allowing us to grab him, bringing him in. Now, on the back of his arm, the 2 points, 1 inch above the point of the elbow, we have a rub point, and halfway between the elbow and the shoulder, right in the hole of the horseshoe of the tricep, is the hit point. The points are used interchangeably. We're going to start with the rub point. The rub point can be rubbed with the knuckles to bring them down easily, or a more preferred way so you don't slide off, just hold that there for a second, is to use this little knob of the ulnar bone. It's nice and hard. We lay it flat, and when we go like this, remember about projecting through, and we bring them right down. Okay? Now, for some reason, you do this one, and you don't get the reaction you're looking for. What do? We move right up to the next point, and again, using the back of the arm for practice, but using the fist or the knuckles in reality, and we bump the arm to put him down. Now, depending on the attack, in a wrist grab, I can rub. But if he was coming with a punching attack, as the punch came in, I'd want to hit to put it down, because I wouldn't have time to look for that rub point. So the points work together. You could rub, you can hit, you could use a combination. If you hit, maybe you miss, you come back, you use the rub point. So you need to know both of them. 1 inch above the elbow, it needs to be rubbed towards the hand, in and down. And the focus has to be through. Right now he's feeling it, but I'm just on the surface. I'm just giving him pain. I want to focus from here to here. So my hand goes down, and he goes down, and he comes back up. When you rub this point, it's tricking the body into thinking that the elbow is broken. Because it thinks the elbow is broken, it wants to relax all of the muscles in the area to prevent further dislocation or damage. And it's at that point that when you press down, it allows you to actually break or dislocate the elbow. So you're using the body's natural protective mechanism against itself. Generally, when you're using the rub point, most of the effect, or all of it actually, is going to be on the elbow joint itself. When you strike the hit point, you can be damaging the elbow, but you can also be dislocating the shoulder. That will entirely depend on his musculature and which part of his body is tighter. If he has a very tight shoulder and you hit it, that's where the damage is going to be. If his shoulder is loose but his arms are very strong and you hit it, that's where the damage is going to be. And if you give it a severe shot, you can damage both of them. So again, when you practice it, right now I'm holding this arm still and just working with one arm. In reality, as this went down, this would be coming up, causing opposing forces, and it would do much more damage in that sense. Okay? We have a couple of points left that we're going to cover that are in the same territory as ones that we've done already. Meaning we're going to go back to the wrist. We had our rub point. We had our press point. Directly between them, we have another squeeze point. This point can be hit to make the hand open, or we can use thumb pressure to dig in and bring them down this way. Basically, this point serves the same effect as the other 2 points. It's just another option, something else that you can do. Now, as we get closer to the hand, we have 2 points on the hand that we use to release grips. One is between the thumb and the forefinger. One is between the pinky and the ring finger. If he's grabbed between the ring and the pinky finger, 1/3 of the way up, you're going to feel a hole there. All pressure points are in a hole. This can be rubbed with the knuckle, or it can be with the knuckle, the pointy part, struck to make his hand open very quickly. If he was grabbing with the other hand and we couldn't get to that one, the other point is between the thumb knuckle and the index knuckle, halfway, right on the bone of the index knuckle. And the same thing, it can be pressed that way, or it can be pressed with an index finger to control him and follow him up somewhere else. So again, this leaves you with different options. Some people will find certain points just work better for them. Some people will find certain points they just can't get the hang of. As long as you know what the point affects and what it's going to do to the person, it doesn't matter which way you go with it. What we're going to cover in the next section is how the points combine with each other. So far we've been doing 1 point at a time, 1 point at a time, 1 point at a time that way. When we start combining points, you're going to see the effect is multiplied, and generally you have 2 arms, you want to always be using as much of your body against your opponent as possible. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have him there and to hit him with 1 arm and this arm do nothing, when this could be weakening another point for the next blow. Okay, we're going to work on some combination of points and how they actually work together. For example, the point we just did, the one in the center of the arm, that's actually called pericardium 6. I don't think I named it before. When you press this point, his body starts to dip forward. But let's say this was the best effort I can get, and maybe this isn't enough. I want to add more pain. At the same time that I press this one, we're going to add this one and bring him down very easily. So now instead of using strength and using force, we're just adding more spots that we hit. The more spots that you hit, the less force that you need. When we grab him, we don't want to just grab with a regular grip. This will give us control, but we're not activating any pressure points right now. If we use what we call the eagle claw grip, we draw the fingers back, and this thumb knuckle automatically catches into this point, this way. And these 3 fingers, the index, the middle, and the ring finger, catch into this groove here, guaranteeing that you're going to get that lung point. So now, grabbing this way is different, you can see, than doing this, because I'm curling. I let the fingers dig into the groove, this is here, and I squeeze. Now, right now I'm squeezing and I'm not controlling him. To control him, I arc the wrist and pull the pinky towards me, this way. Now, the reason for such an effect is I'm actually on 2 points instead of just being on 1. So now, anytime he grabs me, I automatically start my combinations with 2 points. If he decides to punch with the other arm, now I have 3 points, and I can follow up somewhere else. But if he doesn't, when I come to my next point, he's coming in. Whether it's the lung point or the heart point on the inside, we lock here and we squeeze here, and he comes in. Much easier with a lot less effort. Now, real situation again, we don't always squeeze. He grabs, maybe I'm going to strike the 2 points simultaneously, bringing him in, and for the follow-up. So if I want to speed things up, instead of squeezing, we just hit 2 spots. Or we hit 2 spots this way, and we bring them that way to follow up. The final point we're going to cover on the arms has one specific use, and it's called the lower forearm disarm point. Whether an opponent's holding a knife, a gun, or a stick, we want to use this point to make him release it, and there are a couple of reasons for that. If his knife is coming in, and we strike one of the other points, as it comes forward, the knife may end up actually falling on me. The point that we're going to use is opposite the upper hit point. So it's inside this bone on the bottom. Whether you're on the outside or whether you're on the inside, what you're going to pay attention to is the direction that the weapon falls, which is towards him. Now, there's another thing that this one does. When we strike the bottom of the arm, the wrist is going to bend and weaken. When the wrist bends, what did we learn from before? The hand opens. the hand opens when we're using a handgun, the trigger cannot be pulled. All right? This is a rubber gun, but if you had a real working model and you struck one of the upper points, he would release the gun, but before he released it, his finger would twitch and he would pull the trigger. So if I was here and I hit him, he would let go, but maybe he would shoot somebody that we wouldn't want to get shot. So the same thing we're going to apply by coming underneath. It just makes the wrist open, the gun drops. There's no chance of the trigger being pulled. So again, halfway between here and here, the muscle comes in, inside the bone. And striking area should be your radial bone, this bone on the top. So we're just going to do it slow, shooting up this way. If you're on the outside, you're coming slightly in because it's on the inside. If you're on the inside, you're going to turn it a little bit and come from underneath. And as you do it, the wrist is going to be forced forward, which makes sure that the weapon goes that way. Okay, the next points we're going to cover are going to be the leg points. The leg point's main use is to either turn his body, to spin him around, or to drop a taller person down to your height. So if you were dealing with a very tall person, instead of reaching up, you come to a leg point, you bring them down a little bit lower. There's also a special relationship that exists between this arm and this leg. By locking any point on this arm, the opposite leg becomes very sensitive, which we'll show a little bit later. First two leg points we're going to cover are going to be in the same area of the leg, but different sides. If one has the leg bent 50% of the way between the hip and the knee, so we go halfway, and 50% of the way around, inside and outside, are the 2 points we're going to use. The inside point is called spleen 11. It's between the muscles on the inside. If you feel it on yourself, you'll feel a little hole there. And the outside point, if you stay at attention where your middle finger touches, is called gallbladder 31. Both points will cause a Charlie horse in the leg, cause the person to drop. Generally, the inside points can be used with the knee or with the ball of the foot or the heel. The outside point must be struck with the knee or the heel. The reason for that is the muscles on the outside of the leg are much stronger, much more dense. If you were to use a roundhouse kick like in kickboxing or a ball of the foot kick, it would probably bounce off somebody who has a conditioned leg. You need more follow-through. So a side kicking motion or a knee strike, perfect for the outside. For the inside, you can use the ball of the foot, the heel, or the knee. So we're going to start him in a front stance just so we can see where the point is. We have his knee here. We have his hip here. We're going to go 50% of the way in and move to the inside. And with one finger pressure, we're already getting his body to move. Okay, we're going to show the spleen 11 point, the inside of the thigh. As he grabs, one leg will be in the front of the other. If this leg is in the front, we're going to attack it this way. If the other leg was in the front, we would attack it that way. This way everybody can see we're going to use this leg, and as light as we possibly can, we're going to bump it, and you can see his body reaction. Any more power, he's going to drop to the ground. What you saw is he let go of the technique, and if I held on to his arm as I did it, I would retain control to follow up with another shot. Generally, the inside points are used when the person is in front of you, grasping you, where you're lined up. If a punch was coming in, and we're going to turn it in a minute, we would be using the outside point, the one where the middle finger touches. So if he's punching with his left, and we get to the outside, we can't access the inside, but this one here is going to put him right down. And you can see, even though he's shorter than me now, if he was taller, it brings him right down to his knee. Another advantage of that point is for the next 10 minutes or so, he's going to be doing this, which means he's not going to be very effective as far as footwork and moving around. Okay, the next point we're going to be using is on the back of the calf. It's actually 3 points in one. The point names are called bladder 56, 57, 58. If you look at the way his calf is shaped, the 3 points are in a straight line, right at the bend of the knee, dead center, and right where the muscle comes down. The one that we do most of the work with is the one up here. With thumb pressure, we could actually just bring him down. Now, the way we use this point is in combination with the arm points. Very rarely in a self-defense situation are you going to find yourself behind. But if he was facing me and he grabbed and we brought him in close using one of the other points, now I'm behind him enough to put him down on that calf point. So generally when we attack the arm to turn him, either with the right or the left, his body shifts. When you do it harder, the weight comes on. You see the leg buckling, and that allows you to bring him down and follow up this way. The last point on the foot is one that's very important from rear attack. Somebody grabs you from behind this way, or they choke you from behind. One of the main defenses is to stomp. Most styles of karate or self-defense teach you to stomp on the instep. The instep is one of the strongest bones in the body. I don't think it's even possible to break it. So really what you're doing is you're stomping on a very unsensitive surface. Where we aim our stomp is between his pinky and the next toe, just like the one on the hand. Where the foot makes a little turn, you can just press and control him there. So using just, turn a little bit this way, just very light toe pressure, we could pretty much control his body. When we use it, it would be stomping, and he would drop or at the very least let go of what you were doing. This point's also used with footwork. If a punch is coming in, a lot of times we'll step in and tread on the point to follow up with other shots. So if you do a form of martial arts that involves a cross stance or cross stepping, that's a good spot for you to put your foot there. Okay, when we practice again, we use, just like we use our thumb pressure, we use our toe pressure to find the point. Obviously outside he's going to be wearing shoes or boots on, and you're not going to be able to access it in that manner. But by using a stomping motion, whether he has shoes on or not, unless they're steel tipped, you're still going to get the same effect, whether he's grabbing you from behind or from the front. So real situation, stomp. For practice, you don't want to do that to your partner because he's not going to like you anymore. So you use your toe. Or if you're going to use your heel, you place your heel on it and gradually add weight until you get that reaction and you release. Whenever you're working for pressure points, you're looking for a reaction. If I grab his arm and I do this, once I see that reaction, right, I'll do it one more time, I know I did it right. I don't always have to be throwing him to the ground or making his arm go numb. Later on when we cover the head and the body points, it's going to be similar. You'll strike a point and you'll see his eyes blink and he'll stumble a little bit. That means you're on the point. You don't necessarily have to knock everybody out when you practice, because people are not going to want to practice with you if you do that. What you do is you make sure you're on the point, you control. Real situation, you use full power. Excellent method to train on is one of the bob dummies, because you could hit it as much as you want. It's anatomically correct. You learn the proper angle and he won't get mad at you. All right? What we're going to combine now is the arm and the leg, like I explained before. When he grabs with this arm, when you lock either with the eagle claw, like we did before, or we grab one of the points, or we even hit a point, this leg becomes very sensitive. The main way we use to attack it is with our heel coming across. The reason for using the heel is it's harder than the other parts of the foot, and when you have shoes on, the toes tend to wiggle. So the heel is going to cut into the inside point. Now, when I strike this point, like we learned before, his body turns. If I kick that leg without using the arm, his body turns. All right, just keeping these bent a little so I don't hurt them. When you do them together, his body turns and he tends to drop. So whether he was going to punch you, grab you, whatever he was going to do, he's not doing it anymore. And it's a very quick move. I'm not going to do it again with power, but as soon as he's here, you just shoot up and extend out. So now if you were very weak and had no power at all, you're using a weak point of his arm and a pressure point to turn him, a weak point of his leg and a pressure point to turn him, and you're doing it at the same time, which tends to shock his system. He can't be prepared. He may know this is coming, but when he feels this, he can't resist in two places at once. Also, if you notice, this arm is completely free, so as soon as you hit, this is here to finish him right away. So before he finishes moving, your technique should be done. He should be on the ground. The last point that we didn't cover, all right, we're going to roll his pant up again. Between his ankle bone and where his calf muscle comes to an end, halfway between these 2 points, behind the shin bone, you press it and he feels it, but this is not how we use it. We generally use it with a scooping motion. And this is one that's much more effective with shoes on. He grabs, let's just use one so they can see it, whichever foot's in front, you're going to scoop. And it makes his leg do that, which very nicely, we'll do it slow, once he moves it, very nicely sets him up for the other side and brings him down to size again. This can also be used in a situation if you brought him down and you've stepped in and you could actually use the heel to kick it out that way to bring him down. Again, when you're using the shoe, the hard edge of the shoe is your striking point. When you're not using the shoe, you want to use the heel area and just let it kick in. It's very little quicker than if his leg is here and you move that way. It's a very fast move. So he's grabbing, he's looking at you, you're watching this arm, you come here, he thinks about that, you go somewhere else. Generally in a fight, person's going to be looking at your eyes, looking at your shoulders, looking at your arms. If you try to throw a nice high kick, it's going to look good, but he's going to see your whole body react. When you throw one of these kicks, your upper body doesn't move at all. So if he's looking at you, he's not going to see it, he's just going to feel it, and you're going to follow up there. So when his mind shifts down there, number one, you're weakening his system, you're weakening the other points, but number two, you're shifting his focus to his legs, and then you're going to come back up. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to those first arm points that we used, but this time we have John fitted with special protective forearm guards. Same ones used in competition to protect the bone so you don't get bruises. Purpose of that, number one, is so that he allows me to finish what I'm doing because it's starting to hurt. But the main reason is this way we can show that the points work even through a winter coat or through padding. An example would be the hit point that we use. Now, it's going to be hard for you to see, but everybody remembers it's the one halfway. With practice, you will know that it's halfway and you won't have to roll the sleeve up, and that's where the training comes in. I've done that, so I'm just going to show you. He lets go. Right? He grabs on the other side. We catch it from another angle. Same thing. He lets go. And remember, I'm still using the soft part. Now that he has this, I could put the knuckles in, and it works even better. What we're going to have him do is grab different spots. Basically, there's only so many ways somebody can grab you. They could grab your arm, your elbow, your shoulder. They could do it on the other side. They could double grab. They can choke you. That pretty much covers most of the grabs. All of those grabs, most of the time, are going to start with an arm point and then follow up with a head, neck, or body point, or maybe even a leg point. So as he grabs, he's just going to grab at random. We're going to use different points to get out. Doesn't matter which one we use. And you're going to see you just get a good reaction. Two arms, we can either focus on one or we can focus on both of them to set him up for the next point. Now, keep in mind, even with the pads, I'm not hitting very hard, and he has padding. Without the padding, the reaction would be much more severe. So a general principle to try and follow is when he grabs you and you have an arm, strike the arm point. Instead of trying to travel all the way up here, which he expects, strike an arm point. You disrupt his balance, you disrupt his thinking, you set him up for the next shot. If you strike an arm point and then he punches you, you're here to finish him off. You know this punch is coming, so you keep your eyes on that arm. You know when you strike this arm that this arm is done at least for a few seconds. The only thing that's going to get you is that one. Just be prepared for it as you come in. And when you strike it for real and you're here, he's not coming up with that arm. This is going to be there first. So general rule, start with the arm points, work your way in through the body. As we go through the next series of videos, you're going to be learning more about the head and the neck points and the torso points. You're also going to be learning certain self-defense techniques. You're going to see the common thread is we generally look to go for the arm first, then either to the torso or the head or neck. Leg points tend to come in depending on his balance. Like we said before, if we bring him down and his knee bends or I see an opening, the leg point is there. If I don't use the leg point. The primary thing to learn to be good at pressure point fighting is learning the arm points. Right now we're covering stand-up, and we're not even covering punching or kicking yet, which we will get to. When we start adding punches, let's say he throws a hook in, we're striking arm points to set up the next blow. If we're doing ground fighting and he's choking us, we're using an arm point to either set him up for a strike or a follow-up lock. So if you are very good at the arm points, you'll be very good at pressure point fighting. If you're always looking for the head or neck points, number one, they're not going to be as sensitive as they should be because they're not going to be set up properly. And number two, you're attacking what he expects you to attack. He expects the punches and the hits to come to this region. When he does something to you and you go somewhere else, it sends a shock through him where mentally, you're not just physically defeating him, mentally you're making him not know what's happening. When somebody attacks you in the street, generally it's not the first time they've done it. They have experience, and through experience, they know what's going to happen. They know they're going to punch, you're going to put your hands up, you're going to get hit, you're going to fall down. Anything that's done to change that order is going to mentally pause your opponent. So you're freezing him mentally. And while he's in that little indecision in his mind, that's your opportunity to follow up with your strikes. We're going to be demonstrating one of our instant knockout shots. Where we're going to be targeting is the stomach 9 point and the side of the neck. And what we're going to be using is our forearm. The reason for using the forearm is with little training, the swing of the forearm is a very powerful blow, and it doesn't have to be as focused as, let's say, using the edge of the hand or even the fingers or a punching technique. With this motion, this could come after blocking a punch, this could come off of a grabbing. For his safety, we're just going to demonstrate it off him grabbing. This way, we minimize the motion and nobody gets injured. So we're going to have John grab nice and tight. We're going to focus on this point. We're going to use the forearm, stop, and we're going to bring him right down. All right, once we maintain grappling position, both arms are in position to strike him. So rather than bringing him to the ground with a throw, we're actually going to do a knockout technique involving the area around the temple, which are some points that we haven't really covered. We're going to slap. We have the temple, the corner of the eye, and the bridge of the eyebrow, which forms a nice big circle that's just going to get slapped. And on the other side, we're going to use the ridge hand to strike all out of 20. From grappling position, as we're searching for a move, this hand is free to strike here. This hand is free to strike here. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock up, we're going to bring him down, and we're going to show the basic knockout, and he's going to drop. Okay, the last point on the shoulder region is exactly at the apex of the trapezius muscle. So basically we divide his neck and his shoulder in half this way, and we divide it in half this way. And this is where we're going. And we could actually press it and get some effect. Because this is a big muscle, the muscle actually protects and the point lies underneath it. So generally we want to strike it inward this way or using our forearm. If he was coming forward like to shoot to do the takedown, we would actually use our forearms on this point to stop him. Because of the angle, we may not knock him out, but what we'll do is stop his motion, which will allow us to set up something else. What we're going to do is just show this point the effect of it. We're going to have him throw a punch, we're going to block it, and we're just going to put some downward pressure. And the thing to watch for is his legs. Watch where his legs go. So as he comes in, we come down, and we drop him down. Okay, as previously explained, the more pressure points you hit, the more damage that you do. So if he were to grab me in a real situation, I would be using one of the arm points, one of the body points, or one of the leg points before I came to the jaw point. What that would do is it would make it actually weaker. But what I want to actually just show you is how, with no setup at all, this one point becomes very sensitive. So as he grabs, we're just going to come from this position. I'm going to go slow so I don't injure him. We're going to come up in the up and out direction. I'm going to have him bite down real tight so he doesn't hurt his teeth. All right, so we're going to look straight. He's grabbing. We're not going to use a setup. We're going to come in, and it's going to bring him down. We sit him up. We have a special revival that we use to wake him back up a little. All right. Okay, at this point I'd like to go over the proper revival techniques. The purpose of the revival techniques is to wake your partner up if you do a knockout, but most importantly it's to make sure that he doesn't have any adverse effects. What can generally happen if you knock somebody out, they will wake up on their own, they won't just stay asleep forever, but when they wake up they're going to have headaches, their stomach's going to hurt, they're just going to feel almost like they have a hangover. With the proper revival, you're restoring energy basically that you took away with the strike, and you eliminate that effect. The first type of revival is what we call arm revival. Basically, any of the arm points that we strike. When you strike it, what we're going to do is we're going to actually stop energy to that point. So we hit it, the arm goes to sleep. Now, he's feeling a pulsing right now. That hurts. The way we wake it up is we hit the exact same point with an open palm with approximately half the power with a slap. And then we massage the area. And we repeat that. Slap and massage it. And after you do that, he should have full use of his hand again. So the arm revival is basically simple. Whatever you hit it again. But you hit it with half the force, and instead of hitting it with a focused area, we hit it with a flat palm, and we just massage the area. Flat palm, massage the area. And that'll bring your partner's arm back. This way, when you're training, you hit those points, you can practice it more than once. As far as the head, the neck, the body, we do a technique like we did. We strike, he falls down. All right, he'll tend to just be laying down, basically. The first thing we want to do is we want to sit him up. So we grab him by the head. Okay, now if he's really out, he won't fold his own legs, so you're going to fold his legs. We want to keep our knee in the base of his spine. We want to keep our hand on his head. Now if we struck him on this side, we want to revive on this side. If we struck him on this side, we revive on this side. Where we're going to be reviving is right next to the spinal cord. There's something called the bladder meridian. I'm going to show it on myself actually. Not over here, a little bit over, right in this line. This is called the wake-up nerve. Similar to the arm points, we're going to slap it and massage. Slap it and massage. At this point, he should be awake. He may still feel groggy, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our thumb and forefinger, we're going to place it at the base of his back with the spine running in the center, and we're going to run our hand up his spine a couple of times. In Chinese medicine, they say all energy in the body is stored in the kidney region. And when you do this, according to the theory, you're bringing the energy back up into the head. Medically, most likely, you're just stimulating the nerves that go into the neck and head area, and it's waking him up. But either way, the function is what matters, not what causes it. After you finish that, to restore more energy, we're going to start with the hands. Again, in acupuncture and Chinese medicine, each finger controls a different part of the body. So, for example, the pinky finger is considered the heart. The ring finger is considered what they call the pericardium. The index finger is the large intestine. So what you're going to do is you're going to pinch, starting at the pinky finger, and pull. Pinch, pull. You should feel like a popping sensation. If anybody ever got a Chinese massage before, this is what they do. They massage the points. They pop the fingers. And what that does is it wakes up and stimulates all of the nerves. And that covers the revivals. Okay, remember that due to the effectiveness of pressure point training, there's a certain danger involved in the practice. One should always practice under a qualified instructor. And keep in mind that pressure point training is designed to enhance whatever art that you study. Whether you're doing a striking art, a grappling art, or a joint locking art, use pressure points. Pressure points do not replace what you do, they just make what you do more efficient and more effective. Look forward to seeing you in the next series of tapes, and train hard.